Brendan, you're CEO of Ireland's Association for Adventure Tourism. How have your members found 2020?
Well, thanks, Owen, and thanks for having me on. And I should just say as well, sincere thanks to yourself and the ITIC team for all of your Trojan work over the last 8 months. In terms of 2020, obviously, as everybody else says, it's been absolutely decimating. Going back to March, I remember we met with Tourism Northern Ireland at the beginning of March. I think the following day we met with Tourism Ireland, and a week later the world had just completely changed. Yeah. So we went from having a very hopeful outlook for the year, with the exception maybe of insurance and Brexit hanging over us, to suddenly being in a situation where business just wasn't even possible and the doors were closed.
And your members, I mean, it would be largely outdoor activities. So doors were still closed, businesses were still shut, even though, if you like, you weren't in a confined space.
Absolutely, and I think that's a point that we've really tried to push across the government over the last few months, which is that we need to be treated differently to other types of activities that are happening. We're mostly outdoor activities, so it was very difficult for us, I suppose, at the beginning to be shut down. But we were very understanding of the need to focus on putting public health first and foremost. I think back in March there was a real lack of understanding as to what the virus was doing, how it operated, and we just had to go along with the restrictions as they were at the time. But nonetheless, it was very challenging, and it's been challenging, obviously, to try and get reopened again over the summer.
Yeah.
The outdoors sector really is in a position to lead the recovery because of the nature of the outdoor activity sector. Because of the nature of it, it's in a position to give customers the confidence to return to the various products. And then we'd like to think that when people actually come along and take part in activities, they have to eat somewhere, they have to drink somewhere, they have to stay somewhere. So we can be, albeit has a smaller sector than others, we can lead that recovery. But on the macro scale, then internationally, Ireland should be leading the messaging around the great outdoors. We're known for it. We're known for green. Why don't we use that? And then as an extension of that, we're medtech leaders. Why don't we use that to roll out the robust testing for the international market? So it's a shame it's not happening a little bit faster. Hopefully we'll see some development over the next few weeks, but it has to happen. It absolutely has to happen.
And international markets are important to you, I imagine, just like every other tourism business, and the lack of international tourists or international visitors must have been a hammer blow for you and your members.
Absolutely. I'd say over 50% of our members have a primary focus on the international market. So you're looking at most of them then being in a position where they had no business coming in. So it wasn't a case of being able to necessarily pivot to the domestic market with those fantastic campaigns that were run throughout the summer. It was a case that those products were really focused on the international market. So by losing all of those customers coming in, there was nothing coming in. So the inbound tourism trade, that was just completely lost.
Yeah, and a lot of people would think that your members are very seasonal, but I know from experience that in fact it's a long season, or some are actually 12 months a year round. But of course now in the current context, a lot of them must be closing up for the winter months.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we would be very, very seasonal, and that's why I think it was very difficult for us to have the hit back in March, where just as the season was about to kick off, the main season for our members, that everything shut down. So that those key months from the end of March right through to, let's say, the end of September, October, that's really when revenues come in. And to lose that key period for the most part was absolutely devastating. The lack of an international market, it would typically as well, I suppose, extend the season. Where we did see some boosts, obviously, for some of our members who were able to take advantage of it with the domestic market. But that international market would typically extend the season into October, beyond when the schools, for instance, here in Ireland go back. But obviously that's been completely lost this year. A lot of members who would have typically made their money throughout the high season this year, they haven't got that revenue in. So they have nothing. They have nothing to bring them through.
Just talking about the adventure tourism product, if you like. I mean, Ireland's nearly a playground, isn't it, for the adventure enthusiast? Tell us a little bit about sort of the variety of experiences that a domestic visitor or an international visitor can enjoy.
Sure, absolutely. Well, I suppose the first thing to understand is that, with ourselves in terms of adventure, there's what you might describe as a soft and hard adventure. So it's not all the extreme stuff as people often think of. It's things like hiking to kayaking, surfing and equestrian, fishing, climbing, and adventure centres. And indeed, those adventure centres would offer a wide array of activities for groups and families and schools, and continue to do so at the moment. So I suppose it's a wide range of activities that are available. And as we've been saying throughout 2020, activity tourism really contributes to the physical and mental well-being of our society of tourists, and it's probably arguably needed now more than ever.
Absolutely, yeah. And you mentioned insurance, and I know it's sort of an ongoing, if you like, issue for you and your members. And in fact, you guys in IAAT have been, a leader within the Alliance for Insurance Reform. That whole issue about the cost of insurance and the rising cost of premia and the pressure that puts on businesses is not sustainable, is it? And we really need to see change in that area.
No, absolutely. I mean, before Brexit and before COVID, there was the insurance crisis. And at the moment, we're anxiously awaiting the recalibration of the Book of Quantum by the Judicial Council. We really just need to see the payouts to be brought into line with our international competitors. And the example I'm sure you've heard time and time again is a soft tissue injury in Ireland, non-ligament damage, just scraping your arm or hurting an elbow, often something that's treated with paracetamol. The guide currently for that in Ireland is a payout of €21,200, and the equivalent in the UK is 4.5 times less. So this has resulted in a payout in Ireland of about €17,000 for an average payout in Ireland of about €17,000. The equivalent in the UK is 3,800, and in Germany there's a max of €1,125 on that.
And that translates into a higher insurance premium that a business has to pay each year. Isn't that the case?
Exactly, and it's one of the reasons as well we've seen a lot of insurance companies depart the market here in Ireland, because that threat hanging over us all the time as to what a payout might be, the uncertainty of it, it's just a massive challenge for us. Now, it's something that we would hope to see addressed in the short term. We've had some good news in the last few weeks whereby the government have announced that they would be able to step in and legislate for where payouts are still being unnecessarily high. But we really need to see this happen very, very quickly, because even before COVID, this was already decimating our industry, and it continues to do so. We are, I suppose, continuing to work on some solutions, what I would almost call as band-aids really in the meantime, such as just trying to get our members covered. And also we've been working on the development of a group scheme to bring everybody together under one group scheme. And but nonetheless, the reform has to be driven through to really see the insurance market change in Ireland. So from my perspective, Owen, the next 10 weeks will define the next 10 years for tourism in this country. The policy decisions that are made over the next couple of months are really going to define where we're at in 2021, but for the next 10 years beyond that as well. So it's absolutely vital that the government not just recognise the role and importance of tourism, but that they absolutely back it to the hilt to whatever degree is necessary to ensure that the fantastic product we currently have continues to exist next year and beyond.
I couldn't agree more, and I think the whole of the tourism and hospitality family would endorse that and support it. You're in the role 18 months. I remember meeting you 18 months ago when you took on the role, and I don't think anyone predicted at the time COVID. Well, nobody predicted COVID because obviously it hadn't come to pass. But at the time, Brexit, insurance, there was a load of big issues that you had to wrestle with. But you came from a kind of predominantly non-tourism background, if I'm correct. How have you found your experience within the tourism industry and working with other stakeholders?
Sure. I suppose my own background is quite mixed, and I've worked in corporate finance, I've worked in marketing. So just coming in from a corporate finance and marketing background in the past, coming into the tourism industry has been really, really interesting. What I've really found is that there's been a real resilience, especially through the different issues we faced over the last 18 months. So there was initially the insurance crisis when I was starting out. Brexit was hanging over us, and now obviously COVID-19 over the last 8 months. So it's been a really, really challenging period. And what's really struck me is the resilience of our members and of the wider industry, but also just the decency of people within the industry and their willingness to just get on and try to make things happen. I don't think it's ever been as challenging for the industry as it is right now. But if we just keep working together, I think one of the things I'd like to see come out of this crisis is that there is closer long-term collaboration across the sectors within tourism, that we can continue to work together as we are at the moment in coming up with solutions, and just recognizing that we do have mutual interests and we can work together for the benefit of the wider industry. We're a small country in the grand scheme of things, and I think if we do that, we'll make a much bigger success of the country.
Great. Brendan, thank you so much. It's great to finish on such a positive note.
Thanks very much, Owen. Take care.